The weeping has come, and with that, the swarm. We must remove the threat before it gets to the nearby village, otherwise, the whole country could fall.
Hiya! I'm Ink, they them pronouns, and welcome to the Nook. This is a series I call Dungeon Deck, where we take random prompt cards and make strange monsters and NPCs for tabletop RPGs, including their own creature card. Now, with that out of the way, let's get started. Flying skulls are a common minion type creature in many stories, so let's lean into that. This monster would fit in well with those heroic power metal fantasies, as something there to be threatening to folks outside of the main party, but fun demonstrations of the strength and power of the party itself. But monsters are useless if they don't present some kind of challenge for combat situations. So, what does this mean in this instance? We get to delve into my favorite thing to do in heroic fantasy: side objectives. In games like D&D 5th edition, character sheets are so heavily statted out for surviving combat and destroying the enemy that it's hard to make players feel vulnerable. GMs are typically forced to go so long between rests that the players run out of resources, and that's not a very fun way to play. So, if the players have this overwhelming power in combat, how can GMs generate tension in battles without resorting to said irritating tactics? Well, they require players to do more than just win the fight. Here are a few examples. Instead of merely killing all the goblins, the party has to keep them away from the mysterious pyramid artifact. Can't just be back some zombies, take this heavy statue back home too. And for this instance, you can't just slaughter the hordes. You have to prevent even a single monster from making it to the nearby village. This is the central concept for the skulls. They use that drill-like tail to take over headless corpses, and once they do, that unleashes their true sorceress power, as they wield forces that people couldn't ever hope to channel within their own bodies. Then, when those bodies expire, the very flesh and bones left over are used to feed the larvae for more skulls. All right, now that we have that central concept, let's fill it out with some lore. Already, this monster is easily placed into the Breathing Continent. For those of y'all who don't know, the Breathing Continent is a setting that I've gradually been building up with various Dungeon Deck episodes by making monsters who live there. The Breathing Continent is a land made of flesh and bone with all that entails. In this instance, the most important features are the infection dungeons. A general idea of what those are: instead of dungeons being some ancient ruins or wild underground, they're literal infections in the flesh of the continent. Adventurers serve to clear those infections of both monsters and treasure in a symbiotic relationship with the continent. However, if an infection dungeon is left alone for too long, the monsters inside leak out and roam the area around. That's where the flying skulls come in. When an infection dungeon leaks, known on the continent as the Weeping, the skulls escape and create nests in nearby villages, using the local population as hosts and food. Then they launch from those villages to infest the whole region. Weeping dungeons are serious threats specifically because of these parasites. So when a dungeon starts weeping, it's all hands on deck, as every single adventurer is called in to assist the situation. These bits of background all come together to make a terrifying enemy for the party to face, not because the players, are threatened, but what it could mean if even a single skull was able to claim a corpse. It's as if locusts fed on people. Now let's pull out that creature card and start filling it in. First off will be the name. Winged Skull functions for the basics, but that's not something that a mother would warn her children about before bed. It just isn't a strong enough name. But what would be better? Well, at this point, it's probably going to be a unique combination of syllables. Is something that's an actual name instead of a collection of nouns. So let's find one to steal. In this instance, because this has such a demonic visage, let's use the Ars Goetia, a historical book of demon lords. There we have a few good results. Gope is worshipped by necromancers, so kind of fits thematically. Ronov harvests the souls of the decrepit, going along with that sort of parasitic angle and attacking the weak. But I like this one. Bifrons. He moves corpses from their graves and also places magic candles like the skull's magical antennae. Yeah, okay, let's call them Bifrons. Next up are the abilities. These will help illustrate what our Bifrons can do and how they can devastate such wide swathes of the land. Dullahan Puppetry. This ability is what allows Bifrons to pilot corpses. Specifically, they do this by drilling down into the spine with their tail and hooking into the nervous system. By sending out magical impulses, they can operate the corpse nearly the same as a person would their own body. Parasitic sorcery. The Bifron blasts magic through the corpse, gathering up all the remaining power available and burning through the nervous system of said corpse to then unleash power that most other casters could never access because of the limits of their own bodies. They would burn through their own veins if they were to unleash this sort of power, which is not an issue for Bifrons, which use disposable hosts. Disposable breeding grounds. Once the corpse is completely burned out and unable to move, the Bifron lays quick hatching eggs inside it before reversing out and leaving to find a new host. Then the eggs hatch and consume the body to start their own lives as Bifron larvae. With these abilities, the Bifrons have all they need to become the horrifying swarm that devastates whatever peasant population is nearby. Even kingdoms could fall to these monstrosities if not dealt with early. Now we have the stats. We'll be using the D&D 5th edition stat spread, but the numbers will refer to the modifiers instead of the stats themselves. Strength, 1. Bifrons are skulls with wings and a drill tail. The only move that requires strength is burrowing into their hosts, and they have just enough strength to do exactly that and no more. Constitution, -2. As stated, this is a skull with wings and a drill tail. A carpentry hammer could one-shot this thing. Dexterity, 2. Here's where Bifrons have some bite. In order to get their eggs spread quickly, they need to cover a lot of ground. And in this instance, dexterity will refer to their speed as much as their agility. Intelligence. So I want to put this at a 5 to get a good spellcasting stat for when the Bifron has a host, but that would give it an understanding of what's going on more than a piece of thoughtless swarm that it truly is. How about this? Let's make it a 0/5, and the 5 will come in when they parasitize their host. Wisdom, 0. Again, not super aware of things, just a swarm of mindless parasites. Charisma, 1/3. It can operate as a swarm and look scary, but don't really do teamwork or even talk to people while they're not hosted. Bifrons just work off of vibes and signaling through the magical sparks from the antenna on the top of their heads. However, this all changes when one gets its host. Once that happens, the Bifron with the host becomes a commander and director of the horde. Overall, these stats set up the Bifrons as weak individually, but certainly capable enough to take down a peasant on their own. Once they do, their spellcasting and awareness are unlocked. They become much larger threats. Then, if these creatures get out, they will overcome a village in minutes and tear up the entire countryside. Finally, we have the core phrases. These are a set of statements or questions that help characterize monsters and guide DMs on how to play these creatures in a unique and interesting way. Get a host at all costs. Bifron's primary goal, first and foremost, is to find a host. That's how they get food, breed, and increase the swarm. No matter what, they must obtain a decapitated body. Hosts unlock our true power. This is why Bifrons need a host so bad. These creatures are incomplete until they have a host body to pilot. Then, when it breaks down from their channeled magic, they become incomplete once again, bringing them back to that first core phrase.
Follow the orders of the hosted.
When Bifrons have hosts, they can access their full intelligence and therefore gain tactical prowess. This means that the unhosted Bifrons are more likely to gain a host when they follow the orders of those with said tactical prowess. These core phrases set up the major life cycle of the adult Bifrons. They seek a host, unleash their full potential when hosted, and direct the others in their swarm to better find their own hosts. From there, when the host burns out, they restart the process until they are killed or there are no more hosts to find. Starting from a more typical design, the Bifron swarm became a real threat that could even become apocalyptic if left alone for too long. It demonstrates the dangers of the weeping and shows why adventurers need to be proactive when on the breathing continent. So, your players can be some of those adventurers. Challenge them with side objectives, and if they fail, show your players the consequences with a swarm of Bifrons all across the entire country. Make the players regret and learn from their actions as they struggle to become true heroes and protect the land from the Bifron swarm. Alright, now if this creature seems cool and y'all want to see more like it, drill your tails into the like button and pilot your corpse to click subscribe. I also have another video where one robotic adventurer holds off a dungeon in the early stages of the weeping all on its own. Link to that right now. And now, for those of y'all who are sticking around, let's go to the comments question. If you were to grow wings or a prehensile tail, where would you grow them? And as a bonus challenge, the back of the shoulder blades aren't allowed for the wings, and the tailbone isn't allowed for the tail. As for my answer, I'd choose the tail to grow out of the back of my head. It would be perfect to blend into my hair or hold it out of the way when drawing. With that, let's bring this video to a close. For those of you with dark skies, good night. And if you have bright days, good morning. Whatever part of the world you're from, I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Goodbye!